Okay, it's 1 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and made available on the internet. I'd like to move on to item 1.2 of our agenda, which is roll call, and ask our clerk, Jesse Clark, to please conduct the roll.
Thank you. Mayor Lansett, are you present?
I am present.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong?
Present.
Councillor Franzen?
Present.
Councillor Braybrook?
Present.
Councillor Cadigan?
Present.
For staff, we have Donna Taggart, CAO Treasurer.
Present.
Dylan Kosh, Director of Recreation and Facilities.
Present.
Adele Arbor, Planner.
Present.
Bianca Dragicevic, Deputy Clerk. Nate Glassbergen, Recreation and Facilities Coordinator.
Present.
And Jesse Clark, Director of Corporate Services Clerk, is present.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesse Clark. We can move on to item 1.3 of our agenda, which is land acknowledgement and moment of reflection. We respectfully acknowledge that Trent Lakes in Peterborough County are located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty First Nation, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. Trent Lakes respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaty First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. We will now take a moment to reflect on these principles and our duties and responsibilities as members of council. Okay, thank you very much. We can move on to item 2 of the agenda, which is the approval of the agenda as circulated. I would entertain a motion for same. So Councillor Cadigan for a mover. Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any conversation about the agenda as circulated? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 3 of our agenda, which is disclosure of pecuniary interest. If any member of council has a pecuniary interest on an item on the agenda, please disclose it now or anytime during the meeting prior to talking on the item you have an interest in. I see no hands. We can move on to item 4 of the agenda, which is the adoption of minutes. Item 4.1 is regular council meeting of May 6th. Item 4.2 is the statutory public meeting of May 6th. Go ahead, Councillor Braybrook.
Motion to adopt both.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any conversation about the minutes? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Can you hear me in the back? You can't? No, sorry. I'll try to bring my microphone down a little bit. Okay, we can move on to committees and boards. Item 5.1 is Environmental Advisory Committee. Item 5.2 is the Peterborough Detachment Board from March 24th, and item 5.3 is the Committee of Adjustment. Anyone like to speak to those items? Go ahead, Councillor Braybrook.
Thank you. I'd make a motion if I can, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3 to receive.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 5.4 of our agenda. And Donna Taggart, our CAO Treasurer, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Yes, thank you, and through you. So at the April 25th, 2025 meeting of the Peterborough County OPP Detachment Board, the following resolution was passed. So that the board recommend to the 7-member municipalities that each approve the remuneration rate for board members as follows. So per the board meeting, the rates were community representative appointees, $100 per board meeting, and provincial appointee, $100 per board meeting. So for remuneration of the provincial appointees and council representatives, the board requires formal approval of all 7 municipalities. So before you today is the information pertaining to that report, and we would be looking for council to receive the correspondence and approve remuneration for both the provincial and community representatives on the Peterborough County OPP Detachment Board of $100 per meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Donna Taggart. Does anyone have any comments or questions regarding this item? Councillor Braybrook, go ahead.
Thank you, through Mayor. Just a comment. We have on our police detachment board, there's 15 members. Of the 15, there's 6 members who are 3-year community appointed and 3-year provincially appointed. As of today, we only have one provincial appointee, but we are working through our process to select the community representatives. So it's more for information.
Okay, thank you very much for the information. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Seeing none, is anyone prepared to make a motion? So Councillor Framley, go ahead.
I'll make motion to receive a report and approve the remuneration.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? The Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any further conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on now to item 5.5 of our agenda, which is liaison reports for council boards and committees. Does anyone have any reports? I'm seeing none. We can now move on to item 6 of our agenda, which is our statutory public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act. And I would entertain a motion to suspend our regular council meeting and go into a public meeting for that purpose. See, Councillor Braybert for a mover, Councillor Franzen for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can now hand this over to Adele Arbor, our planner. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Lanshead. This is a public meeting under Section 34 of the Planning Act to consider an amendment to the municipality's comprehensive zoning bylaw B 2014-070. A notice of public meeting for today's application containing the prescribed information was circulated to all landowners within a 120-meter radius of the subject lands at least 20 days prior to this meeting, and a sign was posted on the subject land in accordance with the Planning Act. The notice was also mailed to all prescribed agencies, public bodies, and persons in accordance with the regulations. Anyone wanting to be notified of any decision from today's public meeting must either inform myself or the clerk, and the notice of passing will be mailed to them, setting out the method and manner in which appeals may be made to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person does not send in a written comment prior to the passing of the bylaw or make an oral submission at this public meeting, that person may not be entitled to appeal the decision.
Okay, thank you very much, Adele Arbor. You can proceed to introduce the file.
Thank you. And this is an application for zoning bylaw amendment for file number 25-05 to consider a zoning bylaw amendment submitted by Mr. Ed Venema for the property municipally known as 31 Fire Route 41 on Buckhorn Lake. The purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application is to rezone the property from shoreline residential private access to shoreline residential private access, with an exception to permit a replacement dwelling with a partial upper floor and attached garage having a ground floor area of 279 square meters or 3,000 square feet and a gross floor area of 362.7 square meters or 3,900 square feet. Specifically, the applicant is requesting the following relief from the zoning bylaw: an increase to the as of right expansion provision of 50% of the existing ground floor area for a non-compliant dwelling. The existing ground floor area of the dwelling is 67.9 square meters or 729.5 square feet. And the request is for an approximate 311% increase for the replacement dwelling, resulting in a ground floor area of 279 square meters or 3,000 square feet. Also, the request is for a reduction to the 30-meter minimum water yard setback to 28 meters for the replacement dwelling. This will be the same as the existing water yard setback of 28 meters or 91.8 feet. A reduction to the minimum front yard setback of 12 meters or 39.4 feet to 5.7 meters or 18.7 feet. And also a reduction to the minimum southerly interior side yard setback of 4.5 meters, being 16.4 feet, to 2.1 meters, being 6.8 feet for the replacement dwelling, which is the same as the existing setback of 2.1 meters or 6.8 feet to the detached garage on the property. Submissions with the application included an archaeological assessment and a shoreline restoration plan. A site plan agreement has been prepared and executed by the applicant. There is a planning report attached to today's agenda in support of the zoning bylaw amendment. The planning report identifies that the lot is constrained by its lot area, the floodline elevation, and water setback. These constraints cause the replacement dwelling to maximize a somewhat limited area of the lot proximate to the road. It is noted that although the existing water yard is being maintained at 28 meters, its nearest point, the 30-meter setback, complies at the midpoint of the dwelling and the southeast corner of the replacement dwelling. The existing front yard setback has been marginally improved with the replacement dwelling. Given the constraints of the property, the proposed replacement septic system needs to be located in the water yard and will maintain a 15-meter setback to the high water mark. In summary, the application is consistent with provincial policy, meets the purpose intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw. Comments received include correspondence from the building department identifying that the proposed advanced sewage treatment system is appropriate for the proposed development. We have also received correspondence from Mr. Hart, a neighboring property owner adjacent to the proposed encroachment in the interior side yard, and he has no concerns and supports the proposed development. This concludes a summary of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application. Mr. Mayor, I now turn it over to you for the public input portion of the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, Adele Arbor, our planner. Is there anyone in the virtual or physical gallery that would like to speak to this item? Seeing no one in the physical gallery, is there anyone online that would like to speak to this item?
I'm seeing no hands.
Seeing none hands. Okay, does any member of council have any comments or questions regarding this file? I'm seeing none. Okay, that was pretty quick. Okay, we would now entertain a motion to reconvene our regular council meeting and move out of our open meeting. I've seen Councillor Raybert for a mover and Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any further conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Now we can move on to item 7 of our agenda, which is business arising out of the statutory public meeting. Item 7.1, Adele Arbor, our planner, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, and through Mr. Mayor, subsequent to the public meeting held today for file number 25-05, at this time, planning staff recommend that council receive the report from the planner and further that council support zoning bylaw amendment file number 25-05. And for council's information, the zoning bylaw amendment is on today's council agenda for approval.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Brayberg.
Just make a motion to receive and to approve the zoning bylaw amendment file number 25-05.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any further conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you. We can move on. Thank you very much, Adele. We can move on to item 8 of our agenda, which is presentations. We have none. We can move on to item 9 of our agenda, which is delegations. And we have Scott McFadden and Jeff Cheshire in the galleries. Please come to the podium and state your name for the record.
Very good. Thank you very much, Your Worship. Can you hear me? Is it better? Yes. Good. Thank you very much, Your Worship and members of council. I'm here today to represent resident and local developer Jeff Cheshire with regards to Granite Ridge Phase 2. The specific request is with regards to the stormwater management pond. I've just been brought onto this project, but you can see from the history, it's been about 15 years, which is a long time for a project to go through. So in attempts to try and streamline this and get this to the end point where we can actually get into the development, I've tried to go through some of these processes. One of them is this condominium or common element condominium, which is with regards specifically to the stormwater management pond. Speaking from experience, it's not a normal route to go. It's not normal. If a building or development is a condominium, there's usually more involved, which would be your roads and more infrastructure would be all part of the condominium. In this case, it's strictly the stormwater management pond, simply to release the municipality from any sort of liability relative to the stormwater management pond. But that being said, I'm not even convinced that when we take it to the province in order to be approved for environmental compliance, that we're even going to be able to apply. So it's been going around in this big loop, and quite frankly, there's no end in sight. It's going to continue. We're going to go around in circles, and in order to try and make it more efficient to get to that point with this, we brought forward a letter. We brought forward a proposed motion for your consideration. And this delegation was more to just provide an opportunity for you as council to ask myself or Jeff any questions relative to that motion. And I've tried to lay it out very succinctly, so it's very straightforward and you can understand the process that we're going through. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any comments or questions regarding this item? Councillor Braber, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thanks very much, Scott. Do you have any examples of other municipalities that may be in this sort of quandary, if I want to call it that? Do you have any examples of that?
Very good. Excellent question, Councillor. In all my time, I've never seen a situation where the actual stormwater management pond was the only element that was actually part of a condominium. With all the development that we did in Cavan Monaghan, they are all assumed by the municipality. Once the construction is completed, that stormwater management pond becomes part of the municipality as far as the assumption, and we've never gone down this road. So I have no examples of where this has actually been employed, but if you just do a quick Google search, you'll see that the assumption of the stormwater management ponds is typically part of the whole assumption of the subdivision as a whole.
Go ahead.
Just a follow-up. What was did you go through your legal in your municipality and what were their opinion on it?
It was never even considered. So with every one of our subdivisions, the stormwater management ponds were assumed by the municipality post-development. We've done a couple different examples. The first one, which was long prior to myself being there, which I believe used to be the norm, was that they'd be fenced. And quite frankly, any of the new ones, anything that we've done in the last 15 years, we do not put a fence around it. We found that that fence is actually more of an issue when it comes to trying to maintain anything around that pond. And quite frankly, it ends up becoming an overgrown mess, which is a bigger issue upon itself. So any of the new stormwater management ponds, any of the new subdivisions that we've done did not have any fencing or any restrictions with that regard. And in this specific case, the actual zoning is already in place for what the purpose of that pond is.
Okay. Any further questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
A comment and then a question, Scott. First comment is, you probably know Trent Lakes, we don't manage any septic systems. We have 2 water systems that we manage, and that's it. So this would be quite a leap forward in terms of responsibility for the municipality in terms of what we do, what our core business is. The question is costs. This stormwater management system effectively would benefit 34, do I have that right? Something like 34 lots. So clearly not the majority of the residents of Trent Lakes, but there would be a cost associated with maintaining it. So is there consideration around that, or are you planning to simply transfer the pond and all the associated costs to the municipality?
Yeah, with regards to the overall cost, first off, it's completely different than a sewage system. There's not, as far as managing sewage systems and water systems, it has nothing to do with that. So for example, in Cavan Monaghan, we have a specific firm that looks after the wastewater, et cetera. They have nothing to do with stormwater management ponds. So as far as maintenance, you're making sure the water's flowing through the system. That's it. So essentially, and it is operated as is already for Granite Ridge Phase 1. It's already operating, going through. There's been no maintenance, no upgrade. As far as the ongoing costs associated to it, so yes, there eventually you might have to do some cleaning out at culverts, et cetera, but you also have to take into consideration probably an average of $6,000 to $7,000 per home multiplied by 34 homes that you would be bringing on stream, which would way more cover any negligible expense that would be associated with that stormwater management pond.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I just have a question about when would we be taking this responsibility over if we just chose to do so?
So it will not be during any of the development stage. So essentially, once you've assumed the subdivision, which is ultimately at the end of the process and everything's done, that would be at the point. And that's typical, that's the norm across the province with regards to assumption is once you're going, so in other words, it would be the same time as when you're going to assume those roads. So up until the point that you've assumed the subdivision and you're doing, whether it's garbage, recycling, you name it, that is all part and process at the same timing.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. I'd like to get an input from our planning department, and I don't know whether that's most appropriately done by asking here or requesting a staff report back on this. So maybe we can just get a comment first from our planning
Go
staff
ahead,
and we
Bill.
can advise next steps.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to bring forward a report for council's consideration. Not only does it involve the planning department, but also public works and Parks and Rec for maintenance. So I think collaboratively, we can bring forward a report for council's consideration.
Thanks.
Thank you. And just one other comment is, not sure how this makes this process go faster. That was my other question.
At this point, we are still working through not only the subdivision agreement, but also the common element condominium portion of it. And ultimately, as we proceed through that process, then that's going to have to go to the province. We're going to have to go through the common element condominium component with the province, which quite frankly, as far as I know, I don't know that it's necessarily appropriate that they are going to approve that. I don't have any examples of where they have. And so just to go through that environmental process with MOECP, that's a lengthy process in itself. If that comes back negative, then we're gonna have to redo that process as well. But we basically doubled the amount of work with regards to the subdivision agreement as well as the common element condominium corporation portion of it. So it's, as you can imagine, it's going to be a lot of work.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Go ahead. State your name for the record, please.
Yeah, so phase one of the subdivision, all the water runs into that pond now. From what I've learned, the only thing that could really contaminate that is bad sewage systems or all the salt and sand that gets put on the roads. So as we build another 34 lots, you guys are going to be putting a lot more salt and sand. And the MOE, we've talked to people and they've never heard of it, of you guys not owning it, because the only thing they say could really contaminate it is bad septics, which we won't have now. We're 100 feet away from the water, or 10 years ago, we're 50 feet away from the water. That's why I think you guys should assume it. And what we've spent on legal fees trying to do this condominium element compound or whatever they call it, is just insane. And the more we ask questions, the more we learn we're the only ones that have ever tried to do this. And it's just not something that's going to work out.
Okay,
Thanks, everyone.
thank you very much for your comments. Anyone have any questions of Mr. Chester? I'm seeing none. Okay, I would entertain, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'd like to propose a motion that we receive the
Okay.
report. And let me comment first, and then I'll frame the motion. I don't want to unduly delay the process, but I do think we need more information from our staff. So the motion would be to receive the report and to, as staff, bring forward a report regarding the implications of taking on this request.
Okay, anyone want to second that motion? Okay, Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Go ahead, sorry.
Through you,
I
Mayor
think we have
Lansford.
a motion later in.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
I think it's more appropriate to just receive the delegation at this point and then any direction to come under the correspondence for action item.
Okay,
Fine, yep.
so you're okay still with a motion to?
So then a motion just to
receive?
receive at this point in time.
Councillor Cadigan, you're going to second the motion to receive. Any further conversation about the delegation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your present delegation. Okay, we can move on to item 10 of our agenda, which is staff reports. 10.1 is public works. We have none. 10.2 is recreation and facilities, and 10.2.1 is Nathaniel, not even going to try your last name, recreation facilities coordinator. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm bringing this report today to request that a new outlet be put in at the Buckhorn Library to assist in future programming at the site. Currently, the Buckhorn Library now offers 2 programs. They're looking to expand to 6 programs. And they use the kitchen area in the upstairs of the Buckhorn Library as both a staff kind of kitchen area as well as coffee and microwave services for programming, and they are looking to add an additional one outlet in there so that they can add more kettles and another microwave to support the more programs through it. We are requesting that $1,000 be drawn from the library building maintenance reserve to cover the cost of the new outlet install, as earlier septic issues into the end of January of this year used most of our budget for the library maintenance.
Okay, thank you very much, Nathaniel. Anyone have any comments or questions? It's an awfully expensive receptacle
Yes.
at this point. There must be some things we don't know about. Maybe it has to run a long way or inside walls or something, because $1,000 to put a receptacle in seems a lot to me. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Cadigan.
Motion to approve.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Motion, Councillor Franzen, and receive the report? I think we need to receive it as well.
Receive the report.
Okay, you're okay with that as a?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Any further conversations about this report? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much, Nathaniel. Now we can move on to 10.2.2 of our agenda, which is Dylan Kosh. Would you like to speak to this item? Director of our Recreation and Facilities.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you have a report regarding a couple requests that came in during and post our recent ice storm regarding some tree removals. One being at the Detman Park. As you guys probably well know, there's a large red pine plantation there, and if you guys have driven around Trent Lakes, you can see the red pines didn't make out so well during the ice storm. There are about 15 to 20 trees that are within striking distance, let's say, of the adjacent property home. So we're recommending to draw from the Parks and Recreation Reserve to remove those trees. It's put them on the ground and leave them be. We had the discussion with the arborist on whether or not the wood would be worth trying to sell it off to cover the costs. He thinks by the time you get the skidder and everything in there, it's just not worth it. The second request is for the Kin Mountain Medical Center. There are two dead Scots pines that, from all of the research I've done there with finding the property stakes and some aerial photography, they probably lie right on the line is my guess. We have got quotes for a survey, but given that the cost to remove the trees themselves is approximately, sorry, lost that number. Approximately $5,000. I want to say here, I've lost my number, excuse me. 38, maybe 100 here. No. Sorry, $5,000. Yes, here it is. Sorry, lost my train of thought.
It's okay. It's all
And due to them being on the property line, staff are recommending that we approach the homeowner and request to split the cost of the trees. The trees, based on the lien, they don't pose a threat to the community center, but they do pose a threat to the home adjacent to us. The cost of a survey was in the neighborhood of $4,000. So to officially determine the trees, which side they are on, you've almost paid for removing the trees. So our recommendation is to try to split those costs with the homeowner. If they're willing, that's great. If not, council may wish to consider to remove them altogether. So just looking for council's approval to transfer those funds and proceed with coming to an agreement with the adjacent property owner.
okay. Thank you very much, Dylan Kosh. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Cadigan.
Just a comment, it seems like $5,000 to remove 2 trees is a lot, but I guess that's the current state of getting arborists nowadays.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. So the trees are in they're on a hill, on a rock outcropping that's also stuck right in the middle of a hedge. So it's going to be slowly climbing up. It's not just dropping it from the base. It's going to have to be dismantled top down, basically. And that's full cleanup for those. That's chipped and hardened away for us.
Thank you.
That answered my question. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Go ahead, Councillor Cadigan.
Motion to receive the report and to approve the transfer of $4,000 for tree removal at Detman Park, and further direct staff to split the cost of the tree if possible, and approve 2,500 from the King Mountain Medical Center Reserve to fund the municipality's portion of the tree removal.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong for seconder. Any further conversation about this item? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on. Thank you very much, Dylan Koch. We can move on to 10.3, which is fire and emergency services. We have none. We can move on to 10.4, which is building and planning, and 10.4.1. Chris Jones, our external planning consultant. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. You can hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so planning and building departments have been continuing our collaboration with and discussions on accessory residential units. So it has been some time since we reported to council on this, but it's anyway, today's the day we come back and talk about it again. So where we left off with this, if we could just go to the to page 1 of my report, the 2023 resolution. I'm just looking at what's on the screen. Yeah. Okay, so where we left off with this, and council will recall, I've done a couple of previous memos. One which provided the current sort of legislated parameters or basis for accessory residential units. And that report also provided some insight with respect to neighboring or other Peterborough County municipalities, many of which have put such regulations in place, albeit the legislative parameters surrounding additional residential units have certainly been changing and evolving as the issue evolves, and the sort of housing and the affordability issue continues to be a challenge for many municipalities. But anyway, where we left off was this 2023 resolution, and the direction there was to request the planning department to go back and look at an option that would entail allowing or creating as of right regulations to permit a maximum of one additional residential unit or ARU on a property. That with that one ARU either being accommodated within a dwelling itself or part of a dwelling or within a accessory dwelling. So it's on that basis that now we're continuing to move forward and provide you with some more information to see if we can get to an end state with this. The other direction that came out of this resolution was, again, council was looking for some information and insight as to, firstly, the areas of the municipality or the subdivisions in the municipality that are served by water systems, municipal water systems, and whether those water systems had an ability to sustain the potential demands caused by or created by the introduction of additional residential units. So with having said that, again, just a reminder, as far as the definition goes, what we're talking about is an ARU being a self-contained residential dwelling unit located within or forming part of a dwelling or an accessory building, capable of functioning as an independent dwelling unit in a manner compliant with the building code. And obviously, our zoning bylaw, as it stands today, and essentially since its origin, has permitted one dwelling on a property. So this is really the this is sort of the departure point or the change that we are discussing and trying to find a way forward in addressing what essentially is a provincial directive. Okay, so just moving forward then on the issue of the municipal water systems. So there's the three residential areas or subdivisions: Buckhorn Lake Estates, Pirates Glen, and Alpine Village. And those areas represent about 300 residential lots. And so we reached out to the Ontario Clean Water Agency, as the supervisor there, with respect to this issue, and asking some insight and comments. And the upshot of that, of those comments, was that the capacity that's left in those systems should be prioritized for existing residential units and vacant lots of record within the plans. And in other words, that creating as of right permissions or regulations for ARUs in these areas was not recommended or supported on the basis, again, of limitations that those water systems were essentially put in place to serve the number of lots and dwellings on there, and not not a further concentration. That then leads to an analysis of residential zone parcels, again, just to provide council with some insight as to as to the areas and the number of potential candidate parcels that would be made available for an as of right ARU. And so the County of Haliburton, County Peterborough GIS Department assisted us with these, with compiling this data. And again, the backdrop that we are working within, again, there is a draft or an adopted county official plan in place. And can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry, it looked like
We're just being quiet.
You know, it just looks like everybody's in a freeze frame there. Okay. So yeah, the backdrop is.
Oh, maybe we can't hear you now.
You still have me? Sorry, I'm just getting notes that connection to server has been lost.
Okay,
we're still good?
Yeah, we hear you again.
Okay. So yes, the draft or adopted County of Peterborough official plan, which is just going through some redlining as a result of the new PPS. That is our official plan to be. That is our official plan of the future, and it does set some policy in place with respect to ARUs. And to some extent, that informs the direction we're going with this. Having said that, we still don't know when that county official plan is going to be ultimately approved by the province. And so part of ultimately establishing this regulation is it would also include an official plan amendment. Even if that official plan amendment is short-lived, it is necessary given that our current official plan really has no policy direction on this issue. So again, the borrowing or relying on the parameters established through the county plan, and the specific prohibitions that the proposed county plan sets out are prohibitions on private roads, as well as prohibitions for ARUs on lands within 300 meters of a lake trout lake. So again, in trying to compile some data, and so council has some awareness of the number of potential lots that could be eligible for an ARU. What we do, or how we queried this information, is we looked at 4 primary zoning categories. And if we could just scroll down in my report, the 4 primary zone categories that reflect lands on public roads are the rural residential, the rural zone, the shoreline residential zone, and the hamlet residential zone. And yeah, okay. And so those parcels collectively represent 3,175 parcels that are captured within those 4 zone categories. And if we start to, again, subtract again, these various parameters, firstly, parcels within 300 meters of a lake trout lake would serve to reduce that total down to 2791. And then another consideration, again, that we've been certainly discussing at a departmental level is the issue of lot size. And certainly one of the things that we're well aware of in assisting people with redevelopment proposals is the ability of existing lots of record to accommodate a primary septic system. And so what we've proposed through this draft regulation, and again through this eligible lot count, was to factor lots that are, or subtract lots that do not have a lot area that is compliant with the minimum lot area standard. That minimum for these zone categories being 1 acre in size or 0.4 of a hectare. So when that lot size parameter is factored in, if we just scroll ahead in my report, that further reduces the eligible count to 1295. So it's just about 1,500 lots that don't meet that minimum lot area requirement. I already mentioned the municipal water systems, that being about 300 lots. So the upshot of this analysis, or this data summary, is that there would be about 1,000 lots amongst those 4 zone categories: rural residential, rural, shoreline residential, and hamlet residential. And then again, just for context, if there's 1,000 eligible lots there and half of them accommodated ARUs, then you'd be looking at basically accommodating a population of between 500 and 1,000 people, 1 to 2 people per unit. In context, that 1,000 people, that represents the last 4 or 5 years of growth in the municipality, based on housing growth, population growth. So that just gives you some sense of what it could mean. I don't think that that's necessarily realistic, that you would see that level of uptake in as of right ARUs, but in terms of trying to address a housing need and a potential affordability need, it certainly does suggest that it would open some doors. Okay, so Mr. Mayor and Council, then on the basis of that sort of quick summary, the balance of my report then speaks to the nuts and bolts of the proposed official plan amendment that we're contemplating. And again, that OPA would essentially just build a bridge between the present day and the ultimate approval of the county plan, which again, it could be another year by the time that the county finalizes that and it sees its way through the ministry approval process. And then on page 4 of my memo, what I've set out is again the nuts and bolts or the draft regulations that would potentially relate to the as of right permission for ARUs, either within a dwelling or within a detached accessory building. And they're generally the same. We do have where the ARU is a separate building. We do have sort of a clustering regulation, an item J that requires the ARU to be within 10 meters of the principal residence in sort of small lot residential, i.e. rural residential, shoreline residential, or within a rural zone, it would be 20 meters. Again, that's just the notion of clustering for the purpose of shared parking, shared driveway, shared water supply, and that type of thing. The regulation or the zoning amendment would also include again prohibitions that would preclude an ARU, and these are things that again I've already touched on, that things like the lot being serviced by a municipal owned and maintained water system, the lot being within 300 meters of an at capacity or moderately sensitive lake trout lake, the lot not abutting and having direct access to a public road, the lot being occupied by a guest cabin or an existing accessory building that contains plumbing, and lastly, the proposed ARU being located below a regulated flood line or within 30 meters of a high watermark, watercourse, or wetland. That's the summary of today's report, Mr. Mayor and Council. What we're looking for is direction to try to move forward and ultimately prepare the amending documents, the instruments themselves in a draft manner, and scheduling a public meeting. But at this point, again, it has been some time since this topic has come back, so I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor, for any questions and comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Chris Jones, our external planner. Does anyone on council have any comments or questions regarding this item? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor Limstead. And thanks, Chris. And you and I have corresponded, so I don't think any of this will be a surprise. I've got 3 comments. First of all, back to the potential addition of 500 ARUs. All of our forecasts around population growth, including our development charge reports and our official plan, suggests that there will be 220 additional residential units over the next 10 years. So that's not, I mean, it's crystal balling, obviously, but that's sort of the number that all of our calculations around service provision, infrastructure requirements, et cetera, are based on. So 500 is double that, which concerns me. Second comment is, and I didn't talk about this, I'm not sure I understand the numbers. We had 3,175 potential lots with ARU. We subtracted 384, which are less than 300 meters from a lake trout lake. In the official plan, we have 11 lakes, lake trout lakes, that are designated as either at capacity or moderately sensitive. One of those is Cavendish, is Crystal. And another large one is Catchacoma, Mississauga. So I cannot imagine there are only 384 lots that are on sensitive lake trout lakes. So I'd like to understand that better from the county. And the third comment is I'm very concerned about allowing for more development, residential development on any properties that are shoreline residential. Because clearly putting another dwelling on those lots increases the pressure on the lake. I understand we can manage septic systems so that they accommodate the additional people, waste effluents, et cetera, but more people on a lake means more boating, more fishing, more swimming, more use of the shoreline. And I'm very concerned about the pressure that will put on our lakes. Even if they're not lake trout lakes, we still should be concerned about the quality of the water and the fish and aquatic life that's in that lake. So I'm leaning towards exempting them from ARUs. The problem is I don't know how many of those there are in our numbers. And so that was one of the questions I had asked Chris to follow up with. The county was not able to give us those numbers in the short time frame. But for me, I would like a little more information and explanation before I make some not me make decisions, but I take a position on what should be included and what should be excluded.
Okay, thank you very much for that conversation, Deputy Mayor Armstrong. I don't know if there's an answer to that, Chris, or if you'd like to even dabble into that.
Well, I appreciate, Mr. Mayor, through to the Deputy Mayor, the comments. Firstly, the projection of 220 houses or dwellings in the next 10 years, and that's to some extent that projection is a reflection of the abilities, the municipality's ability to accommodate development through designated growth areas and in the settlements, because we know there are limitations in terms of land area, in terms of servicing. So the growth allocation that has been sort of earmarked for Trent Lakes is not a significant allocation, again, given the constraints that we that we're dealing with. By the same token, I've long maintained that we are a large rural municipality. We are land rich, and the diversity in housing type, which urban areas and urban municipalities are constantly trying to accommodate and chase. That's really not that's not really a practical reality for a rural municipality. But for for a rural municipality, particularly in areas with larger parcels of land, the accessory residential unit does represent a viable sort of rural housing option. So I'm not discounting that our allocation growth is pretty modest, but it is at the end of the day, it's a projection or a target. It's not intended to be sort of an end state. And secondly, the lots on Lake Trout Lake. So we'll go back and revisit that calculation. I have a feeling that there's because there has been some sort of because we were looking at other areas being precluded, the LSR zones. It could be that many of those were precluded or located on Lake Trout Lakes, and by virtue of being in the LSR, maybe were counted in another category. But anyway, I have reached out to County GIS to review these numbers again and come up with a bit more detail. And lastly, concern about ARUs and the shoreline residential. I share those concerns. This is why we can't do much about the county plan as it's drafted. It is going to become our plan, and it does contemplate or does have policy that allows ARUs in shoreline areas on public roads. That doesn't necessarily stop council at this stage. And what we're trying to do is get a regulation, get something in effect that we don't have in effect today. And it's okay to crawl before you walk sometimes. So if there was a comfort level, at least sort of at this initial stage or interim stage of precluding the SR zone, that's something that I think certainly council could consider. But that was really the motivation to include a regulation that requires lot size to be at least compliant with the zoning bylaw, i.e. 0.4 of a hectare or 1 acre, which even that is can be tight when you're talking about accommodating water yard setbacks and constructing a second septic system and that type of thing.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Cadigan.
Through you, Mayor Lamb said, if I may, Mr. Jones, for clarification, the additional residential units, are they allowed to have their own septic system if they're outside of the primary building?
So yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, the part of the education with this form of housing and the regulations that I've either drafted myself or reviewed is where people are proposing, either a standalone ARU or an internal ARU, like an apartment within a house. What I have found, again, in discussions with contractors, municipal staff, septic approval authorities, what I've found is very rarely does an existing septic system is it able to accommodate that additional ARU. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, 3-piece bath. Septic systems are generally sort of purpose built for the house that they're intended to accommodate. So in answer to your question, where an ARU is proposed, can it have its own septic system? Yes, it can.
Thank you.
Okay. See, Councillor Franzen, you have another question? Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor. I've been told over the years that development costs, and when I assume that these wouldn't be qualified for any kind of development charges.
Okay, anyone would like to field that one?
Yeah, I don't have a comment on DCs. That's not part of what I'm trying to put together here, but I don't know if it would certainly, at a minimum, even if the municipality were to go there, that would require a separate bylaw and consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the question. Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
Just a comment, I do support the regulations. We do need more housing within the municipality and lower cost housing. So I do support the recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Braber, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, just a couple from constituents. I don't know if you can answer this, Chris. It may be more of a planning question to them. Would a carriage house be allowed, like a living space above a garage? And could slightly smaller lots apply for a variance?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Braybuck, the upper floor, the way the regulations have been drafted, and the way the regulations exist today, maybe let's start there, is in the rural zone, the height of a garage, I think it's about 7 meters, which will readily accommodate a second story. So yes, in the rural zone, a dwelling or an ARU above the garage would be something that would be accommodated through the existing height regulation. The max height in all other zones, i.e. the sort of the small parcel zones, is 4.9. So without changing the height regulation, what it would mean in those instances that an independent ARU, separate ARU, would be either part of a garage, like on as part of the main floor, or it would be a standalone ARU, essentially a small standalone dwelling unit that would meet that or comply with that height regulation. Sorry, what was the second question?
Could smaller lots apply for a variance?
Oh, yes.
Smaller than 1 acre?
And yes, the answer to that question is yes. If somebody was in a situation, did not have that max lot area or the compliant lot area, they would be in a position. And I think, again, practically speaking, part of what I think the municipality would like some assurance of is that such a planning approval would provide to say, okay, if you don't meet that max area, or sorry, not max, the minimum lot area, how can we do this in a way that works?
Okay,
Thank you. Thanks, Bruce.
Any further questions? I just have a couple comments. Item A in both the ARU units within a detached accessory building is all of the buildings and structures on the lot shall lawful and compliant with the zoning regulations. Well, if you drive around our municipality, there's been buildings on properties for hundreds of years and none of them will comply with our present regulations. So I think that's kind of restrictive to say that they all have to comply. I don't know if that's something we can slightly modify.
No, point taken, Mr. Mayor. Yes, sir.
And H in a couple of them is shall not be permitted in the front yard. Well, if you look at my front yard, it's 700 feet deep. I don't know why we have to put front yard in there. Not that I'm putting an ARU in anyway, but it's just there's a lot of lots in rural areas that are. I'm looking at one in the gallery here that's probably 2,000 or 3,000 feet of front yard. So just not sure why we have the front yard thing in there. I'm sure it's to do with shoreline, but.
Well, it's shoreline, but it also is a fairly long-standing regulation that detached accessory buildings be located behind the main building or in line with the main building. And then with the shoreline as well, the front yard, depending on whether you're on a public road or private road, has factors in where exactly the front yard is located. So even as I reread the report preparing for today, that was one that I was looking at, thinking that it needed some tweaking.
Yeah, I think you've got it in the next line where it's got to comply to all the setbacks. So I don't know why you have to have the H when you have I's. Just my comment. Okay. Thank you for your answers. Any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Any comments from staff? Our clerk, Jesse Clark, do you have any comments? No? Just checking. Go ahead, Councillor Brady.
Sorry, one more.
Yep,
And
one more.
it's
Yeah, go ahead.
more of a
All the time.
housekeeping. It's more of a question. This was brought before council just over 2 years ago. I was just wondering what the delay was bringing this report just over 2 years.
Sorry, why the delay?
Yeah, 2+ years. Yeah.
In part, we like to get amendments like this in line or aligned with policy. So it has been a bit of a waiting game, again, with this Peterborough County OP, which is going to be our official plan. And I've obviously mentioned that a couple of times. So yeah, we've been waiting on it, and it's again, they've been caught by the new PPS, and so they're into a bit of a reset on that one. So that's part of it, and the other part is just been to some tribunal hearings and things that have had me going in a few directions. So that's attributed to the delay for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I can add a little to that. I mean, it's been 4 or 5 years for the official plan to be adopted, and we're still not really there yet. And the provincial planning statement took years, so I do understand that sort of delay, but it's just we need to move forward with some things like this. The province wants us to do this, and I think some of Trent Lakes Council also wants us to do this, so I think it's time to move along. Thank you very much for your report, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any further questions? Just before.
No.
Okay.
I want to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Friend.
A motion that council receive the report and that council give direction to the planning department to prepare a draft OP and zoning bylaw amendment in the manner of summarized in this report and schedule a public meeting in accordance with the Planning Act.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Braybert for a seconder with a comment?
Yeah, with a comment, friendly amendment, if Councillor Franzen's agreeable. Could we put a return date on that, either in our June 3rd, which I know is our next meeting, or the June 17th meeting to come back with the report? Because I mean, we've been crawling, as Chris put it, for 2+ years, so it'd be nice to bring this back as soon as we could. And potentially Mayor Lamstead's concerns to have a look at A and H and modifying the report.
I would think probably 17th would be the appropriate date.
Okay, you're okay with that?
17th works for me, yes.
Okay, perfect. That's what we need to hear. Thank you very much, Chris. Okay, we have a motion and a seconder. Any further conversation? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Lamstead. I can't support that at this time. I still need more clarification on the Lake Trout Lake lots and understand more the breakdown of the 4 zoning areas, including shoreline residential. So at this time, I can't support it.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I would like a recorded vote,
okay,
please.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? I have them. Go ahead.
Sorry, just on
this is time
to add to Deputy Mayor's comments. How long would we anticipate that information that Deputy Mayor's requested to come back Could that possibly be done for the June 17th report?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, is that to me?
Yes, I think if you can answer that, I don't know that you can.
Well, what I would suggest is that we, try to kill two birds with one stone, and that for the 17th, we'll bring back amending documents. And I can also provide a summary, a spreadsheet or a table of the data that the additional breakdown of data that the deputy mayor is looking for. So I think for the 17th, it's reasonable that we can try to get all of that information in front of you, and we should be in a position to, again, the next step after is ultimately schedule a public meeting. That doesn't mean it gets approved the day of the public meeting, but it means that we fulfill that statutory consultation.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just last comment. I just don't know why we don't defer it until we get further information. Because we may find new information that suggests we should be making a different decision.
Thank you for that comment. Okay, any further questions? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. Oh, no, I can't call for the vote. Someone else calls for the vote, don't they? Go ahead, Deb.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Are you in favor?
No.
Councillor Braybrook,
Yes.
Councillor Cadigan,
Yes.
Councillor Franzen,
Yes.
Mayor Lamson.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you very much. We can move back down to item 10.5. Thank you very much, Chris, for your report and answering
you.
all our questions. Greatly appreciate it. Okay, we can move on to 10.5 of our agenda, which is finance. We have none. 10.6, which is administration. We have none. 10.7, which is corporate services. 10.7.1, Bianca Dragicevic, our deputy clerk. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Lamson, before council are the expense claims submitted for the month of April and the remainder of March of 2025 for council's authorization. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Bianca. Anyone want to have anything to say about that, or would you like to make a motion? Go ahead.
I'll make a motion
Councillor
to approve.
Motion to approve. Do I have a seconder for that motion? No? That's it. Councillor Braybrook for a seconder. Any further conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on now to 10.7.2, and Jesse Clark, our Director of Corporate Services and Clerk. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamson, both Main Street Landing Restaurant and Sheffield Greens Golf Club have submitted applications for a temporary extension to their liquor licenses to allow extended patios for the summer season. Upon receipt of the application, staff circulated the application internally to the building and bylaw, planning and fire departments, and no concerns were identified. The regulation specifies that a municipality may approve a temporary outdoor physical extension of a premises which is located in the municipality, and a number of conditions have to be satisfied. As there is no formal delegation of authority to staff to approve temporary liquor license extensions, council approval is required. Staff have no concerns with the proposed liquor license extensions and recommend approval.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesse Clark. Any comments or questions about this request? I'm seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Franzen,
Motion
go ahead.
to approve, as they're both well-run businesses within our municipality.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder? I see Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any further conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 11, which is a notice of motion. Does anyone have a notice of motion? Seeing none. We can move on to item 12, which is correspondence for information. To speak to this item, or prepared to make a motion?
Motion to receive.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? And Councillor Braybrook for a seconder. Any further conversation? Seeing none. I just want to make a comment. This is almost what we're just talking about in our couple of other items on our agenda. Okay, I will call for a vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 13 of our agenda, which is correspondence for action. Item 13.1 is, would anyone like to speak to that item? Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lamson. I think this is my cue now. We've already received it, so I just make the motion that we direct staff to bring back a report on the implications of the municipality assuming the responsibility for the stormwater project. pond.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Okay, any conversation? Councillor Braber, go ahead.
Quick question then. Again, are we able to put the sort of a deadline on when to come back, whether it be the June 3rd or the June 17th meeting?
Is there any chance we can have that for the June 7th or 13th meeting as requested by?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll aim for the second meeting in June, because I believe agendas are due in advance of the council meeting, and that'll shorten the time, right?
Okay.
Agendas are posted a week before the council meeting, so second meeting in June will give us additional time.
Okay.
Does that have to be a
Was
friendly
that a
amendment?
friendly amendment to the agenda? Are you acceptable with that amendment?
As long as staff is comfortable with that timeframe, then yes.
And you're okay as the seconder? Okay, so that amendment has been added to your motion. So any further conversation about the amended motion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay. June, I don't even know what the date was, June 17th?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Now we can move on to 13.2, which is the town of Coburg. Anybody would like to speak to that item, or Councillor Braber?
I could just make a motion to receive 13.2 and 13.3.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Cadigan for a seconder on that motion. Any
I would
any
like to
conversation?
speak
Yeah.
to the 13.3.
Okay, so we will just go to 13.2 with that motion. Is that okay with it?
That's fine.
Okay.
Yes.
And Councillor
Yeah.
Cadigan for a seconder is okay with that. So
Yeah.
13, I will call for the vote on 13.2. All in favor? That motion has carried. Now we can go to 13.3 and Councillor Franzen, would you like to speak to that item?
Yeah, I'd like to approve that. I believe it's about time we went there. Originally, we split up the times because we were a farming community. We're no longer based on farming. And I don't think that we should make decisions based on what the US is doing.
Okay, is anyone, are you making that a motion or?
I'll make the motion to
Okay,
support
motion
that.
to support. So we have a seconder for that motion. I'm seeing no hands. That motion has failed. Okay, I just know that I've
My
never
wife
seen,
will be disappointed.
I've never seen a farmer in my life that didn't work from daylight to dark, so I
Yeah.
don't know what daylight saving times has to do with any farmer that I know. Councillor Braber, go ahead.
Just a comment. I appreciate Councillor Franzen's motion. I just need more information. I mean, this isn't a lot, there's a lot of generalized comments. And I would need more data as far as making any sort of intelligible assessment.
Okay, so that motion has failed. Is anyone prepared to make another motion? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Motion to receive.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Braber for a seconder. Any further conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, now we can move on to item 14 of our agenda, which is bylaws. We have a cost recovery agreement, we have a repeal of deeming bylaw, and we have a zoning bylaw amendment. We can do all three of them at one time, or we can do them individually at council's desire. Councillor Cadigan, go ahead.
A motion to receive all three,
I think it's more of an approval motion, but
approve all three.
okay. Do I have a seconder for that? That's not really for me to tell you that, actually. I shouldn't recommend your motion. You can go ahead and make a motion.
Thank you. Motion to approve all three.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong?
The clerk
Now we
can
have
correct me
comments.
on this. I'm not sure what to say. I would like to pull out 14.2 and just have a very brief explanation of what that is from staff.
Can we just have a quick explanation? Okay, so let's just have the explanation, then we can decide. Go ahead. Del, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was a consent, it's like go fly.
Yeah, I was
by.
diving to see.
There was a consent that we gave approval to. And what they were doing, they were adding a piece of property to another lot, adjacent lot. And what we as part of that, we needed to do a deeming bylaw to deem these 2 lots not to be in the plan of subdivision. But we did the bylaw, the deeming bylaw, in advance of that piece being joined to being added to a lot in the subdivision. So now everything's merged together. So we've been talking to legal, and it was suggested that we repeal the deeming bylaw so the addition can go to the original lot, and then we'll do another deeming bylaw to not deem it as lots in a plan of subdivision. So just the timing was off track,
Got it.
and we're
Does make
correcting
sense,
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's kind of an administrative, legal.
Yes.
Okay,
Well,
understand. Thank you for that.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you very much for that clarification. Now, can we
I'll
still leave all
second.
3 in one?
I'll second the
Okay,
motion.
okay, perfect. Okay, any other conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 15 of our agenda, which is announcements. Does anyone have any announcements? Seeing no hands, it's a quiet week. Okay, now we can move on to item 16 of our agenda, which is our closed meeting. I would entertain a motion to end the close. Councillor Cadigan for a mover. Councillor Franzen for a seconder. So item 16.1 is we are going into a closed meeting for the authority of the Ontario Municipal Act, section 239.2, to discuss B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, CAO performance review, and D, labor relations or employee negotiations, CIO performance review. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We are now going into a Okay, we can now move on to item 6.2 of our agenda, which is rise from closed session. I would entertain a motion to rise from closed and go back into our regular meeting. Councillor Cadigan for a mover. Councillor Franzen for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 17 of our agenda, which is business arising from our closed meeting. Item 17.1 is the adoption of the minutes from our May 6, 2025 closed meeting. I would entertain a motion. Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a mover. Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any conversation about the minutes? I know we can have. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on now to item 18 of our agenda, which is adoption of the confirming bylaw. Item 18.1 is the confirming bylaw. Councillor Braybrook for a mover. Councillor Cadigan for a seconder to adopt the confirming bylaw. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on now to item 19 of our agenda, which is adjournment. Would anyone entertain a motion to adjourn? Nope, we're staying for the night. Councillor Franzen for a mover. Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We are adjourned. Thank you very much to all of staff, all of council, and anyone who attended virtually or physically in our gallery.